Message of support. We see the road ahead is bright with the partnerships that we are having. I'm going to call to the podium the leader of the National Archives Advisory Council, Nzimande. Sondela.
Yeah, thank you. Colleagues, he keeps on calling me Sbo, and yet I was his supervisor at some point in our lives. Okay, thank you. I'll call you Radikobo as well. I know that you just acquired your PhD. Congratulations, colleague. We wish you all the best in your journey. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to start by greeting our the Honorable DM, the Honorable MEC, our very own Madam Prigalia, who was the driver of the first elections that ushered our country into the democratic dispensation. I also wish to acknowledge and greet the chairperson of OHASA, Inkosi Ujongisilo Kamenziwa in absentia, members of the council, different councils that are present here, colleagues, and our own children, the learners. Good morning. I'm not going to be long, and I know the purpose of this gathering is to deliberate on oral history that is transmitted by word of mouth. But I want to take us back long before the arrival of Jan van Riebeeck, and start by saying we are in a heritage space today. And throughout the 3 days, we will be deliberating on heritage issues. And this is a chapter of our heritage that forms part of our neglected history. Now, orality literacy is very important. In the West, they embraced it, but they didn't call it oral history. The history, for instance, of the Vikings, it was never written down. It was by word of mouth. The history of the Greeks, told through the Greek Odyssey, and told in pictography, through archaeological findings, told us that they were very good in Olympics, hence the Olympic Games that exist today. All these histories are treated as authentic, even though some of it was not written down. They were regarded as traders. Our grass huts, using mud, standing the test of time, using our own environmental heritage, the trees, the mud, everything that we used to create our own architecture. And we're still doing it today. The skill is transferred by word of mouth, but that is not regarded as orality literacy. And there's a lot that is being told around these stories through evidence, e.g., the caves that were inhabited by the Khoisan. They tell a story through art form, and then it's reiterated verbally. The Zimbabwe ruins, for instance, tell a story in many ways. We even know that they traded with countries as far off as China. It's not written anywhere, but there is evidence when they were excavating the ruins. The Ashantis of Ghana traded with the West long ago. There was slave trade long ago. these stories were carried down by word of mouth. And for me, that is orality literacy, something that some people choose to ignore, even though other histories evolved in a similar fashion. We have evidence of technology, e.g. iron smelting, creating of spears that they used to hunt, food preservation methods. We ate throughout the year, and those preservation methods are still used, and the information or the methodologies are carried through word of mouth and through copying the elders. As I indicated earlier on, the architecture that you still use, you go in the countryside, you see all these mud houses with beautiful grass thatching, and that information is carried by word of mouth. And for me, that is orality literacy. Ladies and gentlemen, we must not end up by collecting history in our present memory. We must try and collect history even beyond before colonization, because that history exists, and in the memory of people, that information is still there. So the archives has a mandate or has an obligation not to start with Jan van Riebeeck and come forward and say what is in the archives. We're trying to counteract that. They must say what is not in the archives that happened before colonization. And we try and recapture that memory through oral history, through transcription, and making sure that we get people to author our history and written by our people. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. If you are looking for a boss, if any of you is looking for a boss, that's the one. Look for her, take her, and make her your boss. You will love the work that you do. Sbo, you were very good when you were my boss. I am forever thankful. But that is not for today, some other time. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to call upon Kgosi Uhuru Muilwa for the House of Traditional Leaders. And if Kgosi Muilwa is not here, we ask for the representative of the House. In the absence, or the sudden appearance, in the absence of the sudden appearance of Ntate Muilwa, I'm going to ask Good Enough Mashego to speak for the Mpumalanga Provincial Chapter, the word of support. Ntate Mashego.
Thank you. Good morning. Honorable guests, Mayor Galabam, President of OHASA MEC, Deputy Mayor Ntate Lubisi from my home province. Welcome, sir. Well, I'm standing here to speak on behalf of Ntate Mthetho, who was supposed to be here, but because since I'm a member of the Oral History Association of Mpumalanga, I'm here to give word of support to OHASA or to the conference that we are having right now. Interesting enough that this is 20 years, and if we look back to the country 20 years ago, there are a lot of things that were happening at the time, things that when we reflect, well, we might actually see that as a nation we have progressed to a certain extent. We might have regressed somewhere, but overall we have progressed a lot. Oral history is quite important, as we might have noticed as African people, especially when COVID hit, that when COVID hit and there were all the suggestions from the World Health Organization on what needed to be done, there were people who were pushing back, were saying, no, that is not going to work, because they call this a pandemic as if it's a new pandemic. But we know as African people that pandemics are not new. We've had pandemics before. As the speaker that just left right now was saying, we need to understand the concept of prehistoric, because people talk about history as the capture of what has happened. We are a prehistoric people. We existed before things started being captured in writing. So prehistoric, before things were written, we had our own pandemics. As African people, we had our way of overcoming pandemics. So that is why when people spoke about Mhlonyan and other things, the pushback was not really coming from African people. It was coming more from the Westerners who have tried in ways to substitute our medication for their own medication. So that was a way that, because there's nowhere Mhlonyan is written about, it's knowledge that has been passed through different generations. Those who know more about Umuti will know about Mhlonyane, Mnaka, all these different ones. You can ask me about some of those. So that shows that our oral history of medication was something that we had to go back to in order to be able to heal ourselves past the pandemic, which was not new. It was new to other people, but pandemics are not new to African people. Right now, there's also an issue that's going on. They talk about food is expensive, food security. And when we say, why is food expensive? They say there's a war in Ukraine. Ukraine is fighting against Russia, the civil war that's happening over there. And we ask ourselves, why are we really hungry? No, a few centuries, not even decades ago, I can count a few years, 1992, 91, 1990, 89, we were producing our food. To a large extent, most people had food gardens at home. And the knowledge on crop rotation, how to produce food, how to make sure the soil does not degrade, is something that's been passed to us through different generations. And it's knowledge that we need to go back now. We need to go back to the food gardens, because that's a heritage that our ancestors passed over to us that we must revive right now. It has been passed over to us through oral history, but now we can be able to write Facebook, social media, TikTok, so we can share the knowledge that we have in food production, in food preservation, to make sure Ukraine, Russia doesn't affect us, Israel, Palestine does not affect us. Further on, the speaker that just spoke about colonization. I hear people talk about Jan van Riebeeck, and I think Jan van Riebeeck is a useful part of our history, but we are a people before Jan van Riebeeck. We were colonized actually before Jan van Riebeeck. Jan van Riebeeck is the one that they wrote about. So I'm not going to give a speech. I just say thank you very much for the invitation, and also wish OHASA a very successful 20th conference, and thank Gauteng for hosting us. The learners, they reminded me of the time when I was still at school, and thank you very much.
Ra leboga go ntate Mashego a bua mo le gatong la Mpumalanga Provincial Chapter ya OHASA. Re kgopela ntate Fikile Josie a bua le gatong la Eastern Cape Provincial Chapter. Mhlekazi Josie, woza tata uzothetela Eastern Cape. Message of support coming from the OHASA chapter. Newly established chapter of OHASA in the Eastern Cape. Bathathe tata.
Good morning, everyone. Let me start by saying protocols observed. I don't want to waste time. As MC stated clearly, I'm the chairperson of the Eastern Cape. Mine is short, as well as I'm mandated by the Eastern Cape to deliver this speech for the first time in this conference. We recognize the 20 years of existence as no mean feat. The Eastern Cape finds it relevant to represent itself here and to give its support over a broad spectrum of issues dealt with. Namely, you can deal with archives, museums, heritage sites, icons, heroes and heroines, recognized and unrecognized. We know there are recognized heroes that we know, but there are those that are not recognized. Research work has been done about the old and the new stories. Publications have been done. Traditional leadership spheres have been recognized. Nation building, clan names, and their significances. Promoting critical analysis and evaluation, and the certification of information collected, Last but not least, finding answers from the Constitution of South Africa is best for this program. The Eastern Cape now recognizes the work of OHASA by establishing the Karoo region, a cradle of humankind through the sustenance of the cargo caves. The Khoisan clans left an incredible mark which no man once tried to shape the old minds and everything of erasing. The caves and the trials represent the birthright of the multiplicity of the generations the African child will reach. The archives represent a fountain of wealth of knowledge to be verified against the peripheral information which may not be proven empirically depending on who collected the information. Questionable findings remain which pose a threat because there are findings, some of them are having a questionable threat which we need to carefully find them. For instance, it remains mysterious and questionable to the minds of the young Amampondomise that Chief Tonjini, qualified as a king, came from the archives in laptops, but not in our history. The Eastern Cape supported the continued existence of the museum over the decades, which give the pictorial portrayal of the historical fact in question. We pride ourselves to be endowed to host the newly renowned Mandela Museum in Nkunu, which we believe is a portrayal of the original version of The Long Walk to Freedom. A story told by Madiba himself. May his soul rest in peace. We support the crafting of the statutes across the provinces, which the significant roles played by our various leading. Now, some have got a critical thinking about those statutes that are posed in those areas. We need to recognize those statutes that are recognized in those areas. In Eastern Cape, in front of the East London Town Hall, there's a statute of Stephen Bantu Biko, who was the leader of the BCM, Black Consciousness Movement, which played a role to the young ones, which led to the Soweto uprising. So we need to recognize those statutes. We believe that these efforts to liberate South Africa should remain shining in the minds of all South Africans, young and old, and should never be allowed to go down the drain untold. I'm coming to the conclusion now. Many critics, however, remain antagonistic that statutes are costly, inexpensive, fashioned to the detriment of the poor. Let us forgive them and show them why we have to preserve those heritage sites. I'll quote here. I'll have an open quote by Aristotle, a Greek philosopher. If you want to avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, and be nothing. I close quote. Our country, within and across its 9 provinces, bear the rich heritage, history embedded in icons and heroes in our ruins. We have the rich history of Mapungubwe, which marks the cradle of humankind, economic wealth. We have the rich history of Ginsberg, a township where Steve Biko was born. We came a long way. Very few struggle stalwarts remain alive. Obviously, many gave their lives in a revolutionary style. Some were exiled, some were jailed, some were killed, and some historically disappeared. In those circumstances, those people, we need to know them, like Mbuyisa. Lungisa, my brother. Okay, it's technology, ne? Sharp Lungisa, my brother. The likes of those political people like Mbuyisa Makhulu, Jama and Monwabisi, Kwanda Mbeki. I'm sorry to touch this one, okay? And Kwanda was formerly president of Thabo Mbeki's son, and Jama was Thabo Mandela's, Thabo's father. We never find them. What about that? If we had time, we'd also go through brutalities, as some were relieved by the Truth and Reconciliation, that is the TRC, which first started in East London. To come to the conclusion, the most recent and current research outcome from our Central University of Technology, where South African students engaged in manufactured a vehicle which was electrically instead of fuel. In conclusion, our economic development and growth depends mostly on our creativity ability. We need to trust ourselves. We need to trust ourselves. As BCM advocated the development pride in our own creation, we also need to deal with the decolonizing education in our institutions. By critically thinking and the sense of evaluating and certifying our provinces to be of high value. Our constitution, Nkaya wa Mumamumafu, should protect us in our efforts of economic development, archiving, and restoring our information. With those words, as Eastern Cape, we thank you.
Enkosi Mhlekazi. Yabona le yakho Mhlekazi ipaper. Ipaper le yakho Mhlekazi wami. Ebesifanele siku engage. Ngoku ke uyathetha uyasuka. Asikwazi ukukuthatha. Noko ke siyabulela tata. The words of encouragement. Ohasa, based on what you have reminded us, has a lot of work to do. Things that have not been covered in the last 20 years. But a newly established Ohasa chapter in the Eastern Cape will carry out those things that have not yet been covered so far. Obviously, we cannot cover everything there is to cover. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to call those learners who are going to receive certificates. But before or while they come forward, I'm going to ask Umtobizo Ngupalisa Makapela. Palisa is both a poet and a storyteller. Ukhona endlini Palisa? Come forward. Nguwala ikagiso lomntu ningamjongi nimdelele, and then laba bantwana laba bazothola certificate bazosondela xa igqiba andinibizi futhi bathathe Palisa.
Molweni. Dumela. Good morning. My name is Palesa Makapela. I am from a township, Yamamokhale city called Kagiso. I'm greeting all the dignitaries and everyone who is in this house, in the city, all protocol observed. I am a poet, I'm a storyteller, I'm a radio presenter. I'm a volunteer at the Gauteng Provincial Archives. I am a young activist, youth activist in Mokhale City and the West Rand. And thank you so much for this opportunity. There was a question that was asked years back when we were doing a website video for archives that said, what is the importance of history in the youth today? We found it very, very hard to actually exhume the answers. Bokubaluleka kwemvelaphi yethu, where we come from, where we are, and where we are going. But we realized that the sources esizisebenzisayo to collect information and also to share information through our artistic gifts and through our creativity, storytelling and poetry and art is that it is something that we need to lock into our foundations. Lock the art and lock the creative education and lock the knowledge of being African uzazi bawe nungubani at an early age, so that xa ukhula ungaxakwa. Ngoba ingathi sixakiwe singabantu abatsha banamhlanje ngoba sizazi uba sivelaphi, asazi uba siphi noba siyaphi. So they don't know where they come from and where they're going, it's stuck. Lord, help them, because when I ask them, there is nothing they know, but what you sow today is what you reap tomorrow. For they don't know where they come from and where they're going, it's dark. Lord, help them, because when I ask them, there is nothing they know, but what you sow today is what you reap tomorrow. I am the venerating proof of the last generation's words. I am your mouthpiece, palpitating through your heavy flows and hisses. I tongue twist my tongue to reason your hidden visions. I am Tselane, the singing child, trapped in the wilderness of incubated suicide. And this born antibilubunzi, imilebe yomlomo wami suke yazingceba kucandeka kwalenhlungu. Ezinkumbulo zisuke zazihlahlumlisa umzimba, ndazibona senhlanhlatha amagama, ndingafuni ugabatela kaloku libali lami eli. I am the venerating proof of the last generation's words. I am your mouthpiece, palpitating through your heavy flows and hisses. I tongue twist my tongue to reason your hidden visions. I am Azania, the poet. Thank you so much. The last one, send their sugar up. In a nation that always reminds us that it is the African's decision to determine his future by his own efforts. And we are reminded as young people that even if sometimes we don't have hope of tomorrow, or sometimes we lose hope because awukho umsebenzi, but we are here to say, with the innovations and the technologies of today, we can save the history that has been blasphemed. And also, if we can write the stories of today, we can have a beautiful history tomorrow. And if Bendina Imali, program director, I would save each and every dream of every young person who's sitting in these chairs. And with that, I say, I wish I could have saved you. They say, umntana ongakhaliyo ufele embelekweni. The interpretation of passion has fallen faint for zange naqala nakhala. You were innocently alive, patiently waiting to breathe out with lips that cutely pout. You were a seed, the eminent grace, for God's sake, a beautiful breed. In the era of sweat and dirt, the womb was stilled. The mind's eye cannot be whole prescience. Calmness, a sound of holes being dug, no priest to pray as mom moves in silent, stubborn gestures of being hit by painful tarnished sharp edges, forceps and retracted red velvet waters covered your thin skin to wave you through unknown grave sounds. I wish I could have saved you, I'd tangle and transfer you to my womb, only for your survival. I'd dance in the revival, I'd dance in the forest for your revival. Stay safe in my recital, for I don't believe in these backstreet madness rascals that tap into your pure pulses for false thesis. According to me, I wish I could have saved you. Let's go back to basics. Thank you.
Uyabona ngathi le 20 years ohasa ingeza every year 20 years ohasa. Because abantu bayazimisela ba prepare and we are really proud of you. Leli xesha ke ixesha le certificate, certificate. Kinako ya certificate and then Mokio obidiwang Fiona ona re etella pele gore the deputy minister answered the certificate. Now this is what it is. Every year, OHASA increases the number of oral historians in every province. In every province, OHASA trains new oral historians. We don't see them in the house, the ones that we have trained before. But OHASA, and if it's not OHASA, then oral historians will always be there. For the last 20 years, we have produced them. Just as you train children in Makaya, after a while, they take the positions of adults. So they will always be adults because you have trained the children to be adults. That when you are gone, they take over after you and they sustain the values of the family and of the house, and they look after who you are. Kinako, this is how we are going to do it. We ask the Honorable Deputy Minister and the Honorable MEC to please come forward. Now, while this may not look so important for you there, these young girls, these young boys will be photographed with the Deputy Minister and the MEC. And they will cherish this very moment. It's going to be big for them.
She speaks. I'll just please. Oh, okay.
Milani Nkele.
Congratulations, Melanie.
Unathi Sikyata.
Congratulations. And this is yours.
Sibongile Phono.
Yes. Come on. Asukani mamu.
Simpiwe Tumelo Njeleni.
Lebo.
Mtati Matswele. Retabile Machoba.
Show them.
Litabo Makuban.
Tinsolo, yeah, Mutombele.
Tinswalo Mutombele. Mihlali Mlaza. Bushle Ramakuboy. Stephen Sianaho. Elton Luan. Bunolo Mwatse. Bunolo. Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
Noctula Mzingaye. Or Mzingaye. Noctula. Noctula.
The prof will receive it.
Noctula is not here? Okay, he's not here, Noctula. Lizeka Ngoko.
That's fine.
Nesipho Mzamo. Lerato Moji.
Hey, Ratu. How is it, Malak? I go. Yes, Dad. Yes.
Ontiretse Mohapi.
Oh, please. Yes. I go, Mana. Yes. Yes. On that stage. On the Mana.
Mpho Cele.
Leadership. Yes. On this side. Kami Mana.
Ethan. I dare, sir.
Ethan.
Yes. I go.
Oh, there.
Yes, 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 yes. Yes, sir. Demo.
Congratulations.
How do you say your surname?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I go. Emma. Suspended.
Snalo Kalmash.
I carry. I know what's in time. I.
Khoitse Modimo Mushian. Rapelang Seikaneng. Are we done? Thank you. Thank you so much.
You know, this man over here, he's very happy to be a teacher, this man. He's the first teacher I've seen so happy about being a teacher. Teacher, right? Now we bring the learners, teacher Siababuis, clan names, recitals, and poetry learners. 4, come to the front. Lily 4. Oh, I thought it's a different set. Roseanne Inoko. Aye. Skala ngekagiso size ngokhotalans landele ngephukumpi uma ukardi angeko uyangena lo phukumpi omnye buwe. Oh, kuqala wena. Yeah, kubhale la ukuthi neyarisana. If you have to repeat.
Hele. Madume bana ba Afrika, madume tshaba sa thisile, madume mapako ba matle, madume bana ba moshweshwe. Ya le dumedisang ke Nthati Matshwele, se tshwana se madi a matle, wanana ya hlahang kwana Lesotho, thabeng tsa mafeteng motseng o bitswang Mathebe Kgopotjha. Nna ke lekgwakgwala se le monthole maphutsi le maraka ke ngwetswe. Motho a bo dijo a bo moselane, motho a bo dijo a bo posela. Ha bo dijo o hlabela dithothela di tse ka sebatho sa bohobe. Tholang le mamela ha ke paqamisa leleme ke re ho lona. Se jalo ka mahaba ha dihaba. Kgeya tsebe o ikutlwela ha ke lobokanya leleme fela ke tlo thola mollo nnete se tlabolane. Sena sefate se tile se beyang ditholwana tse hlabosang methapong e matla lerato kgotso le boqhetseke le jwale tse ngata di ka sona se beyang dithumthum botsotehing mabotle bo kgwahlana ba kgoho bo phatshwana ba kgomo ya lebese e ntle nonyana ke pikoko sefate mosadi ya tswang ka dialla ho theha tharollo hara ditsietsi a tela tsohle o seka nkgekge o nyantse tlhalefao o hema boqhetseke wana bomma matjato ho re itsa botsotehi di moloketse ha e ne e se ka yena lefatsheng le ka sekama ka hona o hloka thoriso ka ha tsa ha ke tse tsotehang fela di tsoteha ha jwang Titote ashauna limitingwani ya uchala pulayano punukwani le rato la bohata gato le lonya le soto le hlokang hlompho tsa mahloko di hasana bohlaswa pina ho utlwahala sello sa mmokotsane meyogo e hana ho oma sefahlehong sa mosadi pito kotlo pulayano di kentse phepheletsane ba sinkotong Athi itoteha ha jwang melemo ya mosadi ha e ka e aparetswe ke tse sehloha kana na lerato le teng pelong ya motho na mohau ho teng mothong na mosaki karolo ya motho na botshepehi ke pallo ho yena ke mosadi o pele e nnolo tshireletso ya masapo maqhalankha a ko mutlwele mo mamele ha a hoa ka ha lentswe la mosadi ke tshireletso ya naha ka ha mosadi ke tshireletso ya naha ke a leboha Taludi. Ha ke bua ka taludi ya setso. Dumelang ke ka rata ho le dumedisa gape. Nna jaaka ke memo ke le rata moji jaaka ba mpitsitse. Ke re gompieno ke tlile go tlo dira poko ya Setswana e leng gore ke ngongorego. Taludi ya le sagapa dipa ke bone ke na le ngongorego. Nna ke mponeng ka ke opesa bagana patlana ya bokgosi. Bo mmamphuthele ke ikhutse. Ba tlhatlha dikastehole ka bonako. Nna ke se dibela maleng ka mmala o mothibidu dikeledi tsa me ga nkitla di oma gonne selelo se ke se dileng se nkutlwisa makutlwa ka botlhoko gonne ke lile ke batlana le setso saka ba re tlampe o itse mo o tswang ko teng gore o itse go mo yang ko teng fela ga ke itse ka go fitlha nako ke yang ko teng ke sa itse peo ya me ka go fitlha nako ke tlampeng ke ko teng ke sa itse setso sa me ga ke ikitse ga ke ikitse gonne ka pere le sela la Setsonga fela ke Motswana ke so ba bang le ngongoregile no le ipotsa gore ke eng gonne wa ke apere Setswana ke apere Setsonga ke mang bomme ba kweneng le bomme ba tshweneng ga ba ntshola sentle gonne ga ba nguta peo ya me eo ke bua ngongorego ka leboga
Re a leboga ba tla bua ba babedi gape ba tla Wow. Monna o rata boititšhere tota ladies and gentlemen, we are going to call upon the Honorable MEC Morakane Musupye. She's going to give a few remarks and introduce the Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Dumelang Tlhebagolo. Program Director, allow me to acknowledge a few, not all of you. I do acknowledge all of you, but just allow me to isolate just about 5 people, 6, but I'll talk to the 5 first and then the 6th one when I introduce her. So allow me then to acknowledge Dr. Brigalia Bam. I'm going to share a short story with you about my experience with her. The president of OHASA, Professor Sekote No, it's a good one, ma. Sekote Mokwatsana, House of Traditional Leaders Representative, Kosi Uhuru Milwa, who is, I think, with us in his heart. South African Society of Archivists, Nkosi Jongi Silo Pokwanaka Menziwa. The National Archive Advisory Council, Ms. Elizabeth Nzimande. She's a representative, I guess. Our scholars, fellow enthusiasts of oral history, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests. So let me share that story with you. A few years ago, I was on my way from Cape Town. I was on duty. And then I was in a plane which was delayed for reasons that, they never share with us the reasons why planes are delayed, but it was delayed. And then in walked a very regal lady who was, as usual, very nicely dressed. And I'm sure you can guess who that was, ne? Yeah. Yes. Me Brigadier Bam and what I was doing in the plane, where was I from, where was I going. I responded to the questions very quickly. And then she gave me a book, which I still have. Yes, your last publication, I still have the book. And then she started sharing with me. And this I appreciate because for me, it was oral history. Her experience as the second chairperson of, or the first chairperson of the formal electoral commission. And I think I was chuffed. I was just so happy. I wished I could have had somebody but anyway, I benefited from the experience that she had when she was supposed to establish so many things. But what stood out for me was the challenge you had about establishing voting districts in mountainous areas. And you told me that you were flown over all of this beautiful country of ours. Yeah, KZN in the main, Limpopo and Mpumalanga, where you were looking at the plains. And then she said to me that she was, after looking at all of these things, and she was thinking, hey, this president, he must think that I'm crazy. How does he think that I'm going to be putting voting districts in these areas? But you did, ma. You put them on, and they were there. And we went out and we voted. So for me, I appreciate that moment. It stays with me. I wrote it down when I arrived at home. I shared it with my daughter. So there's oral history for you. So she knows that I met you in a plane, and I'm happy that plane was delayed. So what you're doing, people, today is beneficial in many ways for many people. So let me do what I was asked to do. It is indeed a rare privilege to be part of this gathering of passionate individuals dedicated to the preservation and dissemination of our collective heritage through the art of oral history as the MEC of Sports, Arts, Culture and Recreation in Gauteng, a province that pulsates with the vibrant technology, a province that pulsates with the vibrant rhythms of history and culture, the heartbeat of our nation and the melting pot of diverse stories. These stories thread a unique tapestry that reflects the resilience, the struggles, the triumphs, and enduring spirit of its people. As custodians of our cultural and historical wealth, it is our shared responsibility to ensure that these narratives, often whispered through generations, are not lost to the sands of time. Our province is a rich collection of stories, woven together by the diverse voices that echo through our communities. As we gather here at the Oral History Association of South Africa's conference, I am reminded of the power that lies in the spoken word, the power to preserve, the power to inspire, and connect us across time and space. In Gauteng, we recognize the importance of oral history as a vital thread in the fabric of our cultural heritage. Our communities are repositories of untold stories passed down through generations. So these stories are the heartbeat of our identity, pulsating with the rhythm of shared experience and collective memories. Gauteng is home to a diverse community, each contributing to the rich fabric of our shared history. From the cultural fusion of Soweto, of Kagiso, of Mamelodi, to the dynamic energy of Krugersdorp, of Johannesburg, of Ekurhuleni and Sidibeng, every corner of Gauteng has a history to tell. It is our duty to amplify these voices, to give prominence to the stories that have shaped us, and to celebrate the diversity that unites us. So, ladies and gentlemen, I said to you earlier on that I was going to acknowledge 6 people, so now I'm getting into the 6th person. And it is with immense honor and great enthusiasm that I stand before you today to introduce a distinguished guest of honor, the Deputy Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Mme Mafu. We are privileged to have a presence on this significant occasion as we celebrate the 20th annual Oral History. Ms. Mafu is an exceptional leader, and I also am a recipient of her exceptional nature. She nurtured me when I joined this department, when I was scared and I didn't know what I was supposed to do. And I always describe it this way, she just breezed into my life and got me, because I had no chance of trying to find my footing or to understand who she was, what she was doing. She just swept me along. But it was a good sweeping, me. I appreciate that. You are a good mentor. The Deputy Minister understands our history as told through oral traditions is a vital aspect of our cultural richness. Her advocacy highlights the transformative power of these sectors in uniting communities and promoting social cohesion through storytelling, through dance, through music and sportsmanship. As we gather here today to celebrate the 20th annual Oral History Conference, we have the privilege of learning from and engaging with herself, the Deputy Minister, and many of you here whose insights and experiences will undoubtedly deepen our understanding of the importance of oral history in preserving our culture. So join me, ladies and gentlemen, with a resounding and very loud applause, and as we receive our Deputy Minister, Mme Mafu.
Thank you so much, MEC, with those warm words of introducing me. I'm sure now the people are expecting that I'm going to sweep them off their feet. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen. But thank you so much. I'm hoping, Program Director, that the 2 young girls that didn't get to perform, they will immediately when I'm finished, they will come. Okay. Thank you so much. Now, to the MEC of Sport, Culture and Recreation in Gauteng, Ms. Marukane Masupie, who's just left the podium, and the President of the Oral History Association of South Africa, Professor Mukhatsana, and the entire executive, the Chair of the National Archives Advisory Council, Mrs. Bongile Nzimande, and the entire council, Umamu Pam, who some of us had the honor of having interacted with her in different platforms. And I hope when she stands up and shares with you some of her learnings and the history, you will be able to be inspired just like some of us. Chairperson of the Eastern Cape Oral History Association, Mr. Fikile Machozi, I just want to tell you that when you were speaking, yeah, when you were speaking, I hope you're still here. Okay. When you were speaking and you spoke about Chief Tonjeni, I can tell you that Mapam said, where does he know him? I know him personally, and I can share the stories. So there you have that you have an opportunity to actually interview Mapam, because Mapam interacted with Chief Tonjeni directly. And when you were sharing the stories about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and you spoke about Chama and Kwanda, I don't know if you know that that was my case in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I don't know if you know that. So now, I know that Good Enough Mashiko from Mpumalanga is representing the chairperson of the Mpumalanga Oral History Association. I was quite impressed that there is another Good Enough. I only know one Good Enough. The Minister of Sports and Culture, Uziz, is Good Enough. His name is Good Enough. So I didn't know that there's another Good Enough. So I'm quite impressed, Tate Mashiko, that you are sharing the name with my minister. I'll tell him because he always brags that he's the only Good Enough in the country. Now, I know that we might have missed some of Amahos that are Konala, Siabingelela, the guest speakers that are here, leaders of various organizations, the officials and staff of the National Archives and the heads of provinces, leaders of academic research and institutions, all educators that are here, the students and the learners, I know some of them have left, and ladies and gentlemen, Molweni. Molweni, niphilile? Oh, okay. I want to greet you this morning at a time that there are people in the world that are not sure if they will be alive in the next hour. Israel is bombarding airstrikes in Palestine every second as we speak. There is airstrikes there. So as we're sitting here very safe, let's remember that there are those that are not very safe right now. I welcome you in this oral conference, a momentous occasion where we come together to celebrate 2 decades of preserving and sharing memories and stories of our times. This year's conference theme is saying memories and stories of our times, celebrating 20 years of telling oral histories. It reflects our commitment to capturing the essence of history through the spoken word. And it is an honor to stand before you to mark this remarkable milestone. I see a number of familiar faces that have been consistent in attending these conferences. I always get excited to see young people sharing such important platforms with our elders, with the academics and practitioners. We cannot leave anyone behind in ensuring moral regeneration and in building our societies. Over the years, OHASA has been at the forefront of documenting, of preserving, and sharing the rich tapestry of oral history that makes up the collective memory of our nation. The stories we have gathered from communities, from schools, from families, and individuals have not only enriched our understanding of the past, but have also contributed to a deeper sense of unity and shared identity. With the advent of new democracy, our department was entrusted with opening the archives to the people of South Africa. We were faced with a daunting task of building a new nation from a divided past. From these atrocious pasts, we needed to build a common nation with a shared consciousness. Heritage was then chosen as one of the instruments to forge unity, nationhood, and peacemaking. We faced a challenging task of whether we completely destroy historical memories that were filled with the agonies and ravages of apartheid. Whether we keep some of the memories, such as the Voortrekker Monument, albeit their painful past, and then appropriate their meaning and celebrate them together as one, whether we create new memories that can be shared by all and sundry. Having considered these options, various strategies were adopted to keep peace and unity with a great focus on reconciliation. We learned our lessons. In some cases, we might have gone too far in terms of compromising. However, the purpose has always been nation building. In the archives, it was apparent that the archives were a site of alienation instead of unity. I say this because the memories in the archives preserved memories of a minority and excluded the majority through apartheid laws. To close the gap, the oral history program was adopted to ensure voices of other population groups are captured and memorialized through archiving. It is here where the Oral History Association of South Africa sprang from a steering committee to a fully fledged association. We collect histories, we document it, and to intellectually engage with these histories through conferencing. OHASA is also supported with human resources to ensure that the subject of oral history is developed fully. We are proud that we have supported the development and growth of oral history in the country as the department. We also feel proud that through our cooperation with the Department of Basic Education, we have involved schools. Across the 9 provinces, learners were introduced to their family trees, izibongo, and totems as instruments to decipher historical knowledge. We are strengthening the school curriculum by providing an alternative method of investigation. It is pleasing, too, that our commitment to indigenous knowledge is bolstered by our respect for elders and knowledge holders, and their tacit knowledge collectible through our history. In every conference, we would like to see how you tap knowledge from our senior citizens and the wisdom hidden in our indigenous languages. President of OHASA, please adopt our languages and use them in your conferences. It is the mandate of our department to promote the use of these languages. South Africa has a rich cultural heritage stemming from a myriad of cultures. These diverse communities with different cultures from the basis of the country's richness of history and heritage. Whereas the diversity is our strength because of decades of separation as a result of apartheid policies, sometimes our people do not embrace the diversity. As a department, we are mandated to find solutions that seek to build our nation. Oral history is one such instrument that we encourage you to use to promote social cohesion. By collecting the histories of the various communities in South Africa, we shall be able to find common pathways in our complex migratory histories. These migrations have sown seeds of splits and schisms that have reinforced divisions of a common people, masquerading divisions as separatedness. It is through oral history that we will be able to map our migratory roots, thus establishing how new identities were reshaped in different countries. Albeit these new identities, history will reconnect us to our lost conducts and families, kith and kin. Our history will therefore bind us together and help us to recover our lost identities. Through our social cohesion and oral history programs, we shall be able to heal our wounded past and strengthen our common destiny as a nation. This will reduce the fear of the stranger, helping us to understand that the people we thought are strangers are actually nothing but our common relatives spread across the continent through migrations. It shall be clear that we are one big family, tied together by a common historical thread. We share a common ancestral knowledge called indigenous knowledge, common values, epistemologies, and metaphysics. As we gather here today, we have a profound opportunity to reflect on the journey of OHASA since its establishment in 2003. The theme, looking back, OHASA's journey since 2003, invites us to revisit our humble beginnings, acknowledge the challenges we have overcome, and celebrate the achievements that have brought us to this monumental point. It is a testament to our dedication and passion that we have reached this 20th anniversary milestone. I think you must clap for yourselves. This conference is not just a celebration, but also an occasion for rigorous self-evaluation and introspection. We must ask ourselves how far we have come and where are we heading. In the year 2000, when this program was initiated, there were huge expectations from the department. Our strategy included the training of oral history practitioners, the development of the code of conduct for oral history practitioners, awareness campaigns, the development of a database of oral history projects, the promotion of new oral history projects, the support to oral history projects, the dissemination of oral history knowledge, amongst other things, and oral history publications. I'm informed that a lot has happened to date. OHASA now publishes conference proceedings. An oral history journal of South Africa was developed and published. The Tell Your Mother's Story coffee table publication is now in its 6th volume. I'm told that the association has an informative website, that more than 500 learners and 200 educators have been trained on the methodology since 2010. And we now have 2 provinces that have established provincial chapters. That is Mpumalanga and recently the Eastern Cape. I'm not happy because Gauteng, which is hosting us, has not produced the provincial chapter. But MEC has promised me that it will be done. Limpopo, which has always been leading in this, most of the professors and doctors are coming from that province. Yet, Prof, you don't have a provincial chapter. What's happening? No, man, don't disappoint me. KwaZulu-Natal doesn't have a provincial chapter, program director. I don't understand. Because, you see, they are sitting here, they are leading. It can't happen. When we meet again next year, I want to be told that all provincial chapters have been launched, without exception. Now, however, I really would have been over the moon to learn that all provinces have solid and vibrant OHASA structures, because then we would be able to gauge and see our progress and what we're doing. The big question remains, though, have we done enough? In the coming few years, Mr. President, I expect to hear more about the strides you have taken to disseminate oral history. What MEC you don't know is that when I joined this department, OHASA and the archives and all of them, they were orphans. I adopted them. They were orphans. I have been in every conference of theirs since 2019. The theme and the sub-themes of this conference touch upon crucial aspects of oral history, from methodologies and theories to decolonization, gendered narratives, and the use of technology in data capturing and digitization. These topics are not merely academic exercises, but essential components of our ongoing mission to preserve and amplify voices that may have otherwise remained unheard. In a world marked by rapid change and transformation, the role of oral history remains as vital as ever. We are living through times of epidemics, pandemics, disasters, land politics, linguistic diversity, insecurity, and migration. These issues demand our attention. And oral history can provide critical insights and perspectives that inform our response to these challenges. Moreover, as we delve in the sub-themes, let us remember that oral history is not confined to the past. It is alive and well in the present and in the future. It thrives in sports, in medicine, in education, and various other fields, influencing policy, shaping narratives, and inspiring change. Our work is not simply about documenting the past, but also about shaping the narratives of tomorrow. Oral history practitioners cannot afford to work in silos. We need to engage with like-minded organizations such as PENSALP and the NHC, universities, Department of Basic Education, our learners and educators, but more importantly, our communities where all our histories lie. We still have a mammoth task in front of us of rooting out inequalities, racism, gender-based violence, and the abuse of children. OHASA is there to play its part in addressing these social ills. The department is currently concluding an agreement with the Department of Basic Education. In this agreement, we have included issues of school sport, artists in school, library programs, archives programs, including oral history programs. I want to urge learners to take their time and visit archival institutions in our country. This is where you will get a wealth of knowledge, which will assist you in writing your assignments, tests, and exams. Do you know that the original records of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, social protests, civil unrests, and the imaging of democracy are kept at our archives? Have you conducted any oral interviews with your elders or community members who were part of these activities? I pose a challenge to you to go out there, find related oral histories. I'm confident that by the time you complete your projects, you would have gained so much experience. I had an opportunity this year, Tatema Josie. Ukona, Tatu Josie, yeah. There's a school in Amtata called Holy Cross High School. They reached out to me. They had an assignment on TRC. And they said, we were researching and we discovered that you were working for the TRC. Can we have an opportunity to interview you? The school, grade 10 learners. And we took them to the Nelson Mandela Museum. We put them there and I interacted with them virtually from my office in Pretoria. They asked all the questions that they wanted about the TRC. I'm just saying, these things can be done. And it is possible. Oral history practitioners cannot afford to actually sit in their laurels. We need to make sure, because unfortunately, our history is fastly disappearing. And the people that are holding our history are dying. And they will die with this knowledge because we are not, engaging them. We need to move with speed. As we navigate this conference, let us engage in vibrant discussions, share our knowledge, and collaborate on innovative approaches to oral history. Let us explore how we can adapt to a world where the boundaries between the oral and the digital are increasingly blurred, where translation, transcriptions, editing, and digitization play a pivotal role in making oral archives accessible to all. My dream is to see oral history projects being listed in the memory of the World International List as our stories. Stories told by our gogos are rich on socio-economic, on sciences, and geopolitics. Remember, the stories of Radimo and such, those were stories guiding our kids to refrain from social ills, to guide them into adulthood and teach them about politics in the neighborhood. Oral history is a vehicle with which we now know that civilization was around Africa long before the white settlements arrived in this country. This is evident in the history of Mapungube and Manu Mutapa. Above all, Mr. President, I spoke about collaborations with other kindred organizations. I therefore implore OHASA to work with all organizations that will make these dreams a reality. Let's make sure that as we navigate the next 20th century, we do it with more vigor and make sure that our young people, we have time to engage them, talk to them, share with them the stories. Because as we are navigating all the social ills in this country, the young people that are busy with gender-based violence, with drugs and everything else, as elders, as people, let's take time, even if it's just a second, and talk to them, because that's how we will be able to transfer oral history to them. Lastly, I want to invite practitioners present here today to be part of our consultative sessions currently arranged by the National Archives in partnership with a service provider we have appointed to assist in the review of the National Archives Act. I must say that the existing act is silent on issues of oral history. This association needs to find its voice in that act. The sooner, the better. In conclusion, let us use this conference as a platform to celebrate the 20th anniversary of OHASA, reflect on our remarkable history, and prepare ourselves for the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. Together, we can continue to tell the stories that define our times, ensuring that the voice of the past, the voice of the present, and the voice of the future resonate in harmony. Thank you very much for listening to me, and may you have a successful and an inspirational conference. Thank you.
Thank you, dear. Thank you very much. Pugumbi. Pugumbi one. Thank you very much. I'm very much impressed. There was a moment when I was driven out of OHASA and I've come back and I'm impressed by the passion that I see from the DM. Professor Christina Landman, I'm not sure if you and Dr. Kogilam are going to come forth. When she is done, then I would like to give you that opportunity with that 5 minutes business you want to take care of. Batate.
Botani mawethu. Botani mawethu. Botani zizukulwana zikaGagabeza kaPhalo. Lo ume phambi kwenu nguSinalo Khalmashi. Ndisuka kwisikolo iAB Phukumpe Senior Secondary School. Ndihlala kwilokishi yaseMuhlakeng eRandfontein. Ndizalwa yintombi yakwaKhalmashe uNala. Ozalwa yintombi yakwaDlamini. Ozalwa yintombi yakoRhadebe. Mna ke ndingunala uMpembe uNgquma uJakadelana uNonkosi uSibhekuza uMakhanye Hlungwini. NdinguDlamini uJamaka Sidatu Sibalukhulu. NdinguRhadebe uBhungane uMthimkhulu uNdlebe Enhle zombini. Namhlanje ndizokunibongela umbongo enandifundiswe ngutitshalakazi kwami ovela kwincwadi kaMasikhanyise. Uthi hlala uthe qethe, hlala uthe qethe, lahla mfolahla, akaqhinyiselwa namaphaphu, zinyosi kusini na, akazange aphazama umdali, ngokungenzi ichimini entloko, umqombothi kukutya kwabadala, hayo makhasela eziko, ndithi lahla icuba labathwa, ungawanqweni amanzi emzimbeni, ungazityeleli iziqhamo kunye nemifuno. Ndithi shukumani mathambaleli ukuthula siyathabalala isizwe sakomawethu. Enkosi.
Aye. Ubathatile. Over to you, Professor Christina Landman and Dr. Kogilam. These are the editors, the editor. Over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Sanbonani Bazalwane. I'm a pastor. Sorry, that's sort of most of the Zulu I know, but I'd like to share it with you. We have here at Uhasa, we are oral history, but then we also want to publish the oral history, which is sort of a contradiction. But the oral history is the method in which we retrieve people's voices, and then from there we can publish it so that the voices won't go astray and that we can keep them. So I'm not going to be long. What we're going to do is we are just going to hand over 2 publications to the guests and the people who have spoken here. The one is Tell Your Mother's Stories, which will be launched properly tonight at the gala dinner. And the front page has been designed by Good Enough Masihu, which is lovely. Give him a hand. And using the same cover, this is the conference proceedings of last year. We just put their voices of resilience and courage. It was on COVID-19. Thank you. I'm giving over to Dr. Kogi.
Thank you, Professor Landman. So I'm just handing over the names to Dr. Radikobo, and then I'll hand out the coffee table books. Thank you.
I'm calling upon the names that are supposed to be here. Not all of them are here. Not all of the people are here, but let us first call upon the Deputy Minister, Nomafu. Not our mouth. Next online, we are going to call the MEC. MEC is gone. He told me that a young man will pick up on her behalf. Who will pick up? Yes, sir. Next in line will have Dr. Brigalia Bam. Wozani ngalama camera madoda. Wozani ngalama camera. Thank you very much. We are calling upon Miss Elizabeth Nzimande. Next online. Yebo, yebo. Thank you very much. Mr. Figile Josie for Eastern Cape, please come. Wait, yeah, the owner of the gift is here. Declare, oh, people do the gift. Sondela pakat nenda anyway. Wabona ke? Josie, come. Thank you very much. MEC. Josie. Sasa ke man. Deputy President of SASSA, come. Deputy President of SASSA, Maite Meta Mangani, o batla lebitso. Professor Tembe is not here. We call upon Mr. Shane Maja. Outing Shane Maja. In that case, we call upon Professor Sekhote Mokhotsane to come forward.
Yeah.
Oui. Usmailera. Rogopa Mekani, Kani Ngobo, Mapoloba, Sondela, Mashia Matli, Ngatuzo Shumai, Kani Ngobo, Mokamediwa, the archives. Usmaile. Ralebo agona le Molifi Thupane gayo kwadilwe batho Kogi, you have written quite a number of people who are not here, but I know I'm on the list. So ladies and gentlemen, we call upon Radiko Bontimane. In conclusion,
Would like to give a round of applause to Dr. Brigalia because her story is the first story in Coffee Table Publication, Volume 6.
Zandleni. No, you didn't. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where we are at. We are scheduled for a break, but before we go to a break, we've got one more. Woza. While I'm checking if this break is appropriate.
Dumelang bagaetsho. Nna ka leina ke Bonolo Moatshe ke tswa sekolo se bidiwa AB Phokope Senior Secondary kwa Motlhakeng. Ke tlile go dira phika ya poko mokwadi e le Tshidi Kgaona Thebe. Eo ke namane ya tholo bagolong. Ena kana di metshope. Ya go ja mogope o lala. Ko tla se o tlogelele balala. Ke tholo e tshupana thekeng. Ene e thala ka methalo e thata ha thoko ga thaba thabantsho. Ke phologolo e mathaithai. Ya go thuba thebe. E be e thube thankga thaba thoto le motho. Ke namane thokana maila go bona. E go go bona ba ile go e bona. Banna ba go ka dikgabapane ba ile ke ka lobelo e ba si ka ile mogagamole e nkgankga molla lebelo makgasa e ikgata ka lona e ikgata kgatisa dikgape kgapetsa kgapetse ke a leboga.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, when we look at our programs, especially mine, I have been advised that there are some of you who have not yet registered. May the program people, that is Ntate Tshitso Challa and Ntate Sizwe, ke Sizwe man, Mbuyisa, le re Kago Sebetlele. Those are the only people who can change the program. It's not myself, it's not your boss, it's not your friend. We have only these three people should we want modifications of the program. Now the program strangely says that we must go to a break and only have lunch later. But I would like these three men to check if the lunch, when the lunch will be ready. Otherwise, it is scheduled for 2:30, in fact. So can you please confirm? In the meantime, there are people who have not registered. We need to know how many people are in the house because in preparing for refreshments, we really have to know how many people are in the house. And if you are not registered and you are in the house, we need your name over there. That way we will know how many people we have to supply food and refreshments to. In the absence of those, we are going to prepare ourselves before we finalize the issue of a meal to go into what we call plenary. But before we go into plenary, we can rise a bit and stretch and get a confirmation. Stretch a little bit. And as I said, some people need restrooms and others need smoking breaks and stuff. But I will inform you in a moment. Tate Ndlovu, sondela mhlekazi. Sydney Ndlovu, sondela tata. Come to the front. Okay, guys, let's regroup. Let's regroup. Let's regroup. And this is how we are going to do it. Very important announcement with regard to lunch. Please come back. People at the registration table, please come back. Come back in. Sydney, please come. Sydney Ndlovu. This is how we are going to do it. We need everybody in the house. Ngena ba, ngena.
of oral tradition must be supported. That's really what I am doing. We realize that in our journey of change as people of my generation, with our experience and my group, I fall under colonial government, which some of you have just read about. Now I know because I belong to that. When apartheid came in 1948, for most of your grandparents, I was already in school. So there are a number of us who probably, when we were changing things, we concentrated on some things. We couldn't concentrate on everything. We had a new constitution, which we didn't understand. That was the first thing. And then we had to reorganize the whole country, which had been divided. I'm not trying to make excuses, Bantanabam. I'm simply saying that there are many things that we should have done. But the agenda was too big. We were to look at the country. We were coming from different tribal provinces. We were something of many nations. You know all that. And many people were living in some parts of South Africa and not in the other. And I will not tell you how many apartheid laws were operating, because that will depress you. So all that had to be changed. And the reason I'm trying to explain this to you is, even though you're younger than me, we did not talk about healing. We talked about reconciliation. And we realize now, after all these years, that there are stories that were stories for us to help us to heal. And we would pass that to the next generation. Now we are suddenly confused. What is it that we're finding ourselves, as we were saying yesterday in the meeting I attended, of religious groups, an amazing group of almost all religions you can think of in South Africa. These groups are trying to say, what is it that we can all see our country of great pride? We were once upon a time, people looked upon having produced this great man, Mandela, having talked about reconciliation, and we had gone to war. And so we were really occupying a very important space globally. Globally, if you look at our history, what suddenly has happened, and we're beginning to say there are many stories of healing that we didn't talk about. And maybe without us, the psychologists are saying that this is really something we need to look at. Why suddenly that with this generation, everything, and I don't want to blame parents who are here, your apologies to you. And for us, grandparents, great-grandparent, I'm a great-grandparent, so that is what, and I'm here that this tradition is good, that people tell the stories, very therapeutic, and I know you know the theory on that, that if you talk to somebody about all your problems, you feel lighter in your soul, as we say in my language, that you talk to someone else. And so I think that I want to say to you, let this history, and I hope that we can also begin to think, if you allow me to share a little bit, about a method which many of us are just talking about, but let's all share what we think is work. The University of Mandela in Port Elizabeth, they now call it by a very complicated name, have established a women's archive. The collections that are directed to women, and I think people must listen. This archive is very important because we want to pass to the next generation some of the things in art. Now, I don't know the names in English, but in my collection, one of the things I had were things made by my mother. And in one of my collection, I had to jump in to look at clay pots. Is that the women of the North Limpopo area? They have been there long before us. And I think you are aware why now in technology, the whole question of the clay has come so strong because of the grandmother of the Johannesburg
the previous Johannesburg Vice Chancellor. The Johannesburg Vice Chancellor who who has just been stolen from us by the United Nations. Yes, thank you very much. This fame that his mother and grandmother was a great maker of these clay pots. And these clay pots, popular. She had never been to school, she hadn't had a chance. But they could tell from the sound. After the clay pot has been made, as you all know, then you have to bake it. But you must make sure that when it's baking it, you don't break it. And so his grandmother had an art of being able to listen to the noise. The noise, when you go like that, I have to demonstrate because I don't have words in English. I don't know how you say that in English, yeah. And then she would say, no, this pot is not ready to be baked. It will break. And that theory now has been adopted in technology. Can you believe it? That it has to take South Africa also to make this contribution in the technology. So now this is very exciting. Nathi with technology. So this is a great thing for us. And those are the stories that are also what we call healing stories. So that it's not all about sadness and all about the humiliations that we went through. It's all about that. And so that is important. And another thing I want to encourage you to do, which is also, I want to share with you, I've been part of a team that the government wanted to do a museum thing on Desmond Tutu. And we have suffered very much to find conversations. We were able sometimes to get some of the speeches he made, the sermons he made. And we're to get a lot of material from overseas because here at home, at that time, there was no one who is recording conversation, recording everything. And some of the recordings that were done when people were doing, they are no more, they've been thrown away and things like that. And that is what the world needs to hear. They need to also record the voices of the people and the conversation. And we must bring that to the history of today, because the history of today, kaloku abantu abasafundi ngoku incwadi, and you are aware with us. My family, I try to, I want to civilize you. I want to buy you books for birthdays. Nobody reads that book. Everybody is looking at their cellular. And when I try to tell nice stories about Mamelanga, so it's they will listen to voice. They listen to voice. But the concentration, it seemed to be, but I'm not an expert on that. I'm just simply saying to encourage that the more of this we do, the better for us, for the preservation of the voices of those who are here. I wanted also to share with you that this collection in Port Elizabeth is intended to also look at the women in history. It's not only just about women. And I'm sure in every school in this country, I'm sure every South African knows who was the first woman who got a degree in science. I'm sure all the students who are here should know who did that. Now we want that kind of excitement to come, and there are many more of such women so that they can inspire the future. And the collections from them, the collections from their mother, and their own voices. And that is something which I think is important, because as we begin to talk about the gender and the discovery of, people get the patriarchy and all that, we need to bring to history, because in my job, which I had to do for many years, I was employed by the World Council of Churches, and I lived in Geneva. For many, many years, I lived in Switzerland. And one of the things in this country I discovered, which I knew nothing about, is that it was a nation like us. And I'm responding, to what you said. And I want to give this to what you said. They've got their own history, which of course was not my history. It's a place of 4 languages. It's a place of 4 languages, 4 traditions in one country. There are those who are German speaking, and they talk about the German speaking part of Switzerland. And their schools are in German in that area of Switzerland. There are universities, and the system seemed to work. And then they have what they call the French-speaking part. I lived in Geneva, which is the French-speaking part, as you might know, of Switzerland. And then their language. And then you have the section of the Italian-speaking Switzerland, which I was not know, or just for you to feel sorry for me. It turned out that my name, Brigalia, and I don't know where this fancy name came from. But when we were born many years ago, we had to have Christian names, yes. So Christian name, so your parents tried to find a very nice name beside Mary and Mariah and so on. So one of my aunts, ever from my grandmother, my grandmother had been working as a domestic for German missionaries. So this name, Brigalia, so I come to Switzerland and I say, I'm Brigalia. So one pastor says to me, my colleague, oh, that's where I was. My second, I worked there. My second, I didn't know. I come from Tsolo, from a village in Tsolo. So now this name comes from Switzerland, the Italian-speaking part of Switzerland. So that has been our history. We didn't know those things. Hey, now I can't get rid of this. It was too late. By the time I was politicized, to change the name, it was already too difficult. I was too old because too many certificates were already net dompasium, you know. And so, but then my brother managed, younger than me, to get rid of all these names. And Pani Pichana was telling me yesterday in his book he's writing, he has got rid of all, he had 4 names, at least all Western names. But that's on a lighter note for you to see. I want to talk about this history again and give an example of Switzerland again. I developed what is called fibroids. I don't know if people know what fibroids are, but I'm not here to give a lecture if you don't. And then I didn't know. And then there was this group of young women who are gynecologists. They are feminist gynecologists. And forgive me, I will tell you the whole story about them. And they said they were tired of men who are trying to be experts on gynecology. And so now, yes, if there's one who's a doctor here, please don't get offended. It's not me. And so now they really want to deal with this thing because they, you know, it's a monopoly. Why would men have a monopoly? So then I went to these girls now with my fibroids, and they say to me, listen to this embarrassment. Oh, of course, no problem, because you are coming from Africa. You know, Africa, sometimes they think it's one place, my village. That's how they talk about it. You come from Africa, yes. No, women in Africa have been treating fibroids for years, I am told, by researchers in Europe. And they have a certain type of clay they have used. Now, I'm a South African, and I am with these professionals. We're going to use the same clay. Needless to say, the clay had come from somewhere in Africa, I don't know where. And it's a clay, it is scientific, it's true. A lot of herbs, for instance, in Switzerland, I mean, there are other countries, those of you have studied, have actually come from here. And that is why the pharmaceutical companies are able to. Clay is one of them. So I was treated in Switzerland in 1972 with South African clay by women who had researched and read. True story. It's my story. Then another incident happens again. A person you might know, she's quite famous. We tell the story to everybody, both of us. Phumzile Mlambo, who became our first deputy president, a daughter of a teacher and a granddaughter of a nun. So she is special with us in her life of, you know, where she comes from and the spirituality and the formations of that. And she was in labor. And so the The young doctor comes, and then I'm invited, of course, as a grandma, come to the labor ward, and then there's this young doctor. He says, well, if you don't deliver within the next 2 hours, we'll have to take you to the theater. Oh, fine, then he goes off. And a woman who was a midwife was assisting this young doctor here. And as soon as the doctor leaves, this woman turns to me, he says, let's do the delivery. You know, the women, I'm sure you can deliver. I don't say I don't know. She says, now telling me, the women in Africa deliver babies. No, they don't go. You know, the women in Africa, so you know, so I can't say, now they don't. So we are in a ward. She says the method they use, these women in Africa, which they still use today in the villages. Now they're telling me, Ndivele Africa, Ndivele the next thing is, she says, it's the breathing they control. The technique of in labor, they can't go to the theater. I am told by a woman in Switzerland. Now, these are the things that they might seem to be nonsense. We don't know these things. They are part of our history. Besides many herbs, if I start on the herbs, you will all make me a nyanga, so I won't go to the herbs. Because you will tell me to resign from what I was doing. And all these herbs are in Europe. I'm telling you, it's not only umhlonyane. It's not only umhlonyane, which became only propolis. So I'm just saying to that, those who can still share something, no matter how small it is, no matter how little of this history, let us do it. And the one I'm coming to, which is something I want to share with you, you are aware that in the 27 years Mandela was in prison, he was being recorded. Every time there were visits of the family, every time in those 27 years. And in the 27 years, from 1980s, according to the research and others, then they would call him Bamtate from Robben Island. And as you might know that by the time Mandela was released, he had been removed from other prisoners from Robben Island, and he had been taken to 2 different places. And everything, a visit, a conversation with him, recorded of the 27 years. Everything, when the family comes, a lot is now also in the book I have been reading, but I'll talk about that next time you invite me, Andrew Tetangayombo, so that you invite me again. Yeah. And it's all, and somebody was stealing this material to his home, and then some of it is there, some of it is in the University of the Free State, and everything is oral. That's what I am saying. And encourage people that the use of oral information and oral, all those archives that we're talking about are not things that are in the books. Of course, now they have put them into the formation. And a lot in the last book, one of the many books, but there are many books coming on Mandela, the last one is full of some of that material. And the University of the Free State has been very caring, I must say, I'm now expressing a personal opinion, of not putting some things out in the books, because there were things that were personal and private and painful. But it's what I'm saying, it's history. It's oral history, and we depend on that history for many more things to come, because we will never know what those discussions were unless people help us, that finally, after the long history of South Africa, something happened in those conversations. And I think this is something that you need to know. And I just want to say to all of us, we carry this and we encourage it in schools. I want to compliment this, but where we are weak, I mean, it's known by that, we're weak, we didn't do it. We don't have enough history books, as you know, in our schools. And I think on meetings like this, I'm just talking now as umakhulu. Let's get the younger people, as many as possible. When they were having my launch in the University of on this archive center and thing, and we had young speakers. We invited a lot of younger people because they need that information and they need to be the future researchers as well and take an interest. So let's target the schools a little bit more because Tinaban Badala, siyamamela nje, it's interesting, it's wonderful. Then that's it. Thank you.
Sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, we are very thankful to Dr. Bam for sharing with us the wisdom. Dr. Bam has been all over, as she has mentioned, spent a lot of time in Switzerland, spent a lot of time with the South African Council of Churches, and tried with all her efforts to build the nation. She continued today with the information she has shared that there is still a long way to go in building of this nation. We will take a break, ladies and gentlemen. Those who were with the deputy minister will go. They will be led by Ntate Challa. Ntate Challa is the deputy president, and then Rona Babang, we are upstairs where we will have the food, where we'll be served. And when we come back, we printed this for a reason. You need to look what is happening, when is what, and the like, so that we come on time and then continue. When we come back, we are going to listen to Professor Tembe. But I will make everyone aware now that this is the time to come. I can make you aware before we leave. So Pumalanga, 2:15. Yeah, 2:15, siyabuya. Enjoy the lunch. Monga ka register ndikujongi, register. People are going to eat upstairs. There is a kitchen upstairs. Someone has misplaced their phone. Could you please see me now when you have misplaced your phone or you lost it? Then we will check if it's yours. People lose and misplace phones. Enjoy.